want to show you how I'm setting up the lighting. Ah. Hey, welcome to DIY with You Do It. So this is John with You Do It. We are going over the camera setup that I use. So behind the scenes, which you'll see some of this equipment in the shots because it's just the nature of my workshop. So we have a garage with all my woodworking tools in here, and this is where I shoot making projects. The equipment that I've accumulated over the years, and this doesn't happen overnight. Like when I started my YouTube channel, creating content for it, I started out with a GoPro, and then later on that GoPro became damaged during an accident, so I had to upgrade. So I upgraded to another GoPro, but I also bought a Panasonic G85, which is that camera right there, but I had the GoPro mounted above it. Today we're going to go over my camera setup for filming in my workshop. So this is my studio, and as you can see right now, I am behind a light. So part of setting up for a shot is to make sure I am composed properly, or my workpiece is composed properly, meaning that the lighting and the framing of the shot is as perfect or as best as I can get it, because I'm a one-man team. So I want to make sure that things look as good as I can get it, and I try to take my time, but then there's other times where I forget about it, and then there's only so much you can do in post-processing. For those of you who don't understand the term post-processing, that means that after you recorded the footage, this is the footage that's being recorded right now, but then I bring this footage into my editor, my video editing software, which I use Adobe Premiere, and I look at that footage and line everything up. Sometimes shots don't look good, so I switch to a different camera. Well, in this case, I have a huge light source behind me, which I can see me in my viewfinder. Well, my LCD display on the G85. I can see myself there. So I know that I'm in shot, and now we just had the garage door opener light turn off, so that just changed things slightly, only slightly. But good news is, in the G85, I have what's in IA Plus mode, which uses like some form of adaptive software to automatically adjust the ISO and the whatever the other settings are on the camera to get as best of a shot as I can get. So with a white source behind me, it is white, but with a light source behind me, it's very difficult to get good lighting. Fortunately, I have a light source in front of me, which is lighting me up this way, which is, you can't see it, it's off camera, but I'm pointing to it right there, and you can see my hand is like kind of bright, reflective from it. So it's lighting me, so it's kind of counteracting that, but my head is blown out from this light source above my head right there. So now to get things set up properly, I would identify where I'm working, and I would point all lights on that area that I'm working. Now it could be that all those lights pointing on it will overexpose the shot. It's possible, because you can have too much light, but the IA Plus is pretty good to a certain point. If I have a really white surface and I drew a pencil line on it, chances are you won't see that pencil line. So there's some finite areas of lighting that you want to achieve where you want to balance being able to see certain contrast. Let's talk about the lighting. So this is one of my light sources that I have. So this is a Neewer I think it's bi-panel, right? Maybe. And this is RGB. So the nice thing about RGB is I can actually turn the color that I see fit. And everything's a little dusty from my last thing. But now, Let's see, so it's still a little, let's change it this way. Completely turn it that way. So now that light source is pointing away from me. So things are better for my face, but now you can see that there's still that light source right there. So that light source there is intended to provide an additional set of light for the entire space, but what I'm going to do now is turn it upward. So it's going to provide a softer background, so now there's more contrast between me and the background. It's a softer background. So the equipment that I use is lights on stands. So I'm going to move this in the frame now. So this is one of my lights on a stand, right? So I can position this light around however I need to. And we can do that by loosening this guy up here and then rotating it around. So you can see I'm able to rotate that light around if I need to, but I'm gonna tighten it up so it's secure, and I'm gonna put it back where it was. So that's one of my light sources. The identical light source is the one that was down. The identical setup that I had here is duplicated at that light all the way at the other end of the garage. That light that I played with to point it upward. Now this is a different setup. This is where I have my C-stand. So the advantage of a C-stand, which is also called a Century stand, but this one has a gripper arm, which I will show you that now. The difference between a C-stand and this is a C-stand complete. And what a C-stand complete means is that it has not only the C-stand part, but it has the gripper arm, the boom pole with another gripper, that the gripper can be positioned anywhere to hold another piece, another light, a camera, whatever. But the advantage of these Neewer lights are that they could be set up a few different ways. And the one way is to slide it over the pole and secure it with this thread. So that's why I like the Neewer lights. Now I could put it at the end of this, which is clearly not on camera. So, and dangers of having your setup is you have this threaded end here. It has a little plastic end that is part of it to protect your head from the threaded end so you don't poke out your eye. You can still poke out your eye, or you don't end up with any flesh wounds. So that's really why you want to take a tennis ball and put a slice in the middle and put it down here, or you want a padded end, but with it up high, you shouldn't have to worry about that. So we're gonna put it back up high. But the C-stand has, and I have a C-stand that I'm gonna unbox for you and show you how it's assembled. But the C-stand has a base of 3 legs. One leg is longer than the other and is at the highest point of all 3 of them. And it has, depending upon your C-stand, it may have 1 or more sections. So this has 2 additional sections that are extension arms. And this C-stand actually reaches up. This ceiling here is like 7.5 feet. This C-stand reaches up to 10 feet tall. You can combine that with perhaps an angle of the boom arm and you can exceed higher than 10 feet. But the advantage of the boom arm combined with the C-stand is that you can have a camera and your lighting over your workpiece and you won't see the camera or the lighting in the shot. When you have other cameras in there, depending upon how far away your camera is, and if you have it wide angle or not. You may or may not see this equipment in the videos. Now, for my videos, you're going to see my equipment. You know that I'm a single man team. I'm trying to do the best I can, but if you see my C-stand in the shot, it's not a concern for me because you know my operation. You see what I do. I film everything myself. So if you see a C-stand in the shot, I'm not filming something from, you know, the 17th century that cameras didn't exist. So cameras exist. This is my setup. You can see my cameras. Here they are. And when you operate a C-stand, you always want to wear gloves. So I was breaking my own rule by not wearing gloves when I played with this. But the intention is that when you wear gloves, if there's ever a chance for you to get pinched, the glove will absorb some of that pinch, right? Now, this particular C-stand has springs in it. So when I drop this, it'll get to a certain point where, you see that? I don't want to do that too much because I got the light on it. But this is like a safety spring so that it doesn't come crashing down and slamming down into the base. That would be bad, especially if you have a camera on there or you have somebody under there and the lighting or whatever it is that's on the boom arm isn't secured that well. You don't want that crashing into somebody's head or falling off and hitting somebody's foot, or worst case, you have a really expensive piece that you're filming and that comes crashing down and hitting whatever it is that you're filming. So the advantage of the spring is that it absorbs that amount of shock. And there's two springs in there. There's one in this inner tube and there's one in this one as well. So there's two sets there. So now I'm wearing my gloves. I'm gonna lift this up. Ideally, you would lift up just this section. And so let's tighten this one. Ideally, you will just lift up this section here. So that you only ever lift the one. Once this reaches the point of maximum extension, then you can work on this one here. So this is my setup with the C-stand. Now, as far as the lighting's concerned, I can always dial back the lighting, but I found that with the lighting far enough away from the workpiece that having it set the way that it is now is good. So right now we have it set to 4900 Kelvin. It's a little dusty here because, hey, it's a workshop. I want to see what I have this one set to. This one is 5600 Kelvin. So a little bit of a difference in color temperature. And now I'll talk a little bit about my camera rig here, which I'm going to grab my other GoPro and I'm going to film the camera rig setup that I'm talking to you now in. So I can take off my gloves now that I'm no longer working with the C-stand. So the camera that I'm using is a Panasonic G85, which it's a micro four thirds camera. For me, the reason why I purchased that camera was that it gave me DSLR similar. I mean, I know it's not a DSLR because it's a micro four thirds, but it gave me similar capabilities with 4K video quality back in the day when I purchased it. And another advantage compared to other cameras, I can record in 4K video, 30 frames a second, for an indefinite amount of time, because right now I'm using a dummy battery to power the camera that's recording me. I can record an indefinite amount of time without the camera overheating and shutting down. There's a lot of competitor cameras right now that are having issues with the camera overheating after recording for 30 minutes. That's not my game. I'm not going to spend $3,000 for a camera that shuts down after 30 minutes. That's ridiculous. Now, I didn't know that at the time, Actually, I did. There was a camera that was shutting down that I saw the reports, and I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not buying that camera. So that's one of the other reasons why I went with the G85, because I saw no reports of the G85 having issues. The problem with the Micro Four Thirds camera, which if you don't understand photography, I'm not an expert, is that the traditional like 35 millimeter lens type thing on a, let's say a Canon, right? A full frame camera, we'll call that. When it says it's like 60 millimeter lens, it's truly 60 millimeters at the full frame. If you say that with my lens on a Micro Four Thirds with a 60 millimeter, that's an equivalent to the Canon 120 millimeter focal. So now what that means is that there's a crop, right? So the camera actually crops into the shot. The problem with that is that it's not good for vlogging. Okay, so you see how far away I am, right? So I am, and I'm zoomed out all the way, and it's a 24 millimeter right now, I believe, which I think it's 12 millimeter, but it turns out it's 24 because, you know, the 2 times ratio I was telling you about. So I have it zoomed out all the way, not zoomed in, zoomed out all the way so you can capture as much as possible. But the problem with that is when I'm doing some things in woodworking, either I'm zoomed in too much or it's just the nature of the Micro Four Thirds. I'm trying to capture some detail. I'm almost always out of frame when I'm doing something. So let's say my workpiece is this long, the camera sees this much, but when I work out of frame, it's still important to capture what's going on. And that's why I have the GoPro. The GoPro I have mounted above the G85, both pointing in the same direction, but the advantage of the GoPro is I'm able to capture this entire room almost because it's a wide angle view that I have it set to, right? The GoPro is like, we know the GoPro from watching footage from creators that it's wide. Now, the other thing I've learned is that good audio is really important, and I've upgraded from a series of microphones. Like my first microphone was a Rode, well, my first microphone was the one that was built into the GoPro Hero 4 Black, right? So that microphone was decent. I consider a lot of the footage that I captured with that GoPro excellent. All right, so this piece has been cut on 45s on both ends. Then when that had the tragedy on a construction accident, when I was working on my deck, I had to purchase another one. Well, I got the GoPro Hero 5 Black. And it was at that point that I decided to purchase the G85 camera. And when I got that, I also purchased the vloggy microphone that you know. It's the Rode VidMic Go, I think it was called. And it's the microphone. I even got the, I think they call it the dead cat, right? So that little furry thing that fits over the microphone and that sits on top of the camera. Now, the evolution of what I'm talking about is things that you may go through as a creator. So when I'm talking about the microphone setup that I have, that was not my starting point, right? The microphones that I have now is not my starting point. I decided to upgrade to the next best thing that Rode has, and that was the Rode VidMic Go Plus, Pro Plus. And that has battery powered, it's a lithium ion built into it that's rechargeable, and it has various settings on it for the amount of dB gain that you can set on it. Now, really good microphone. It also picks up pretty much everything. So if there's a fan going on, room noise, whatever, it's picking up that noise. Then I'll start recording on the secondary G85 and the GoPro. And then I double check that we got audio. So in post-processing, and I don't mean noise from electronic sources, I mean actual noise that you can hear, that microphone is picking up. So for instance, if I'm working, which this was typical, I would work on like my son's studio or painting in a room, and the HVAC fan, blower fan was going on. In post-processing, you would see this steady noise towards the bottom part of the entire waveform, and it was nothing but the blower. But then when the blower shut off, because the HVAC shut off, you would see that it went down to pretty much nothing. So that could be somewhat annoying. And there's a little bit of filtering you can do in post-processing, but then your audio starts getting a little wonky sounding, like it was artificially processed. So I then decided later to upgrade to this microphone that I'm wearing right now. So this is the Rode, the Wireless Go 2. This has 2 transmitters, right? You can split them up. The interviewer wearing one and the interviewee wearing the other.
Gonna go to the beach and open up, and I tell everybody, I said, I've never been to the beach a day in my life. I go down the shore. And people down there don't understand it because they go
down the shore.
They go down, I go down, never been to the beach.
Or you can wear both of them like I do now. And the advantage of wearing both of them is that if one fails, which I've had that happen, and I don't mean fail because it's a bad product, I mean fail just because for whatever reason I hit a button or I didn't charge it, which is another thing that you can have happen. You have a backup, right? And then there's things in post-processing where you can take the audio from the one and merge it into from like the left channel and merge it into the right channel. All kind of cool things there. So you always have audio. And the receiver I have connected to my G85, which is perfect. And there's settings within the Wireless Go 2 receiver that I'm able to set to get it so that the audio doesn't peg. And then on my rig, which I don't have turned on right now, I have a little mini light. So it's a little Neewer RGB 61 light that I have that occasionally I'll turn it on if I need a little bit of extra boosted light. Sometimes I do. So enough of this here. I'm going to now grab my additional cameras and I'm going to show you how I set them up. And I want to show you how I'm setting up the lighting. So now we'll loosen this. Okay. And now we'll turn our C-stand right here. Now I just have to be aware that my C-stand is there. And I want this cord, which I use to power my GoPro. So now we will focus on the camera bag. Now here's one of my GoPros that I have. And this is a 9-inch articulating arm by SmallRig. All right, so we're gonna mount this camera to the tripod to the C-stand above. All right, so I have my GoPro camera, right? My articulating arm is loose right now, but this this gripper has some rubber that's with adhesive that is mounted to the inside of the gripper, and then this is just a clamp, right? So it's using a lever type clamp to clamp it. So we're going to clamp this to the C-stand right here. All right, and now we need to get our cable, which we have to connect to a power source, but we're gonna loosen, open up the door for the GoPro, and we're gonna plug our cable in. So you can see, just plug the cable in, and then we'll get the camera set up here so that we're getting the overhead shot of what I'm doing, right? Okay, so now I just put my tripod right in here and plug in that. So now This needs to be charged because I see 2 LEDs. So now that is charging the GoPro, and now I can start recording on the GoPro. All right, so now I see the GoPro. Yep. So now we're recording. So let me see. So now I hit record on the GoPro, which you may not have seen it. All right, so our GoPro is now recording. So now we have the overhead shot of the contents of my bag. So now I have various cables that I bring with me. I have my Joby Tripod, which this is really great for setting up a shot. So if I need to, sometimes I have to set the tripod down. For instance, if I'm working on something low to the ground or even something up high, I can set this up on a tripod and hit record and capture footage from an additional angle. All right, so right now I am recording with my 4th camera, my 3rd GoPro. And so we're doing this now so that I can show you my rig. So we're gonna come in here, and then this way my GoPro above will be able to see what I'm doing. So let's set this up temporarily here. We'll get this alternate angle here. Come on, what's going on? Oh yeah, I need that. So on here you can see this is the battery that I have attached with gaffer tape to the tripod. That then has a power source for the G85 that goes in through that port right there on the bottom of the G85 right here, right? And it has this connection here. And so that powers the G85. This is the rig. This is the SmallRig, which is no longer in production apparently. I can't find it anywhere. So this is the SmallRig cage that is then mounted to the tripod, to the shoe of the tripod. And then I have a SmallRig little 5-inch articulating arm that is connected to a GoPro adapter. It then goes to my GoPro that's for recording. So you can see that's the view there. I have this little light, so I'll turn this light on now. See, that's the light that I can turn on, but we'll turn it off because we don't need it. And then you can see this is the display for the camera. And I've been recording for 1 hour, and I have 3 hours and 35 minutes remaining. And then this is the audio receiver for the wireless Go 2. So you can see that's the, as I'm talking right now, that is the settings for it. You can see I'm slightly peeking into the yellow, but not to the red. And this is, you know, my setup. I have them like right up against my throat. Not ideal. When I wear my jacket, I'm able to wear it on the lower part of the zipper of the jacket, so it's further away from me. And yeah, the power cable from here. So this is the Anker power cable that goes to the GoPro. Now, the GoPro I have here, just to give you a better viewpoint. So the GoPro I have here, that's the super clamp that then goes to the articulating arm. And you can see I have the articulating arm coming out this way. And that's why it's so cool. And the GoPro really doesn't weigh a lot, so it's not creating a big moment on this. And I had the door open with that red cable, and the red cable comes down to this power supply. So that's the power supply right there, and I need to charge him. So I'll begin that charging process while we are having dinner. So yeah, that's my setup. And then this is on my On my C-stand, I have a sandbag. So the sandbag is filled with, one pouch is filled with gravel, just to give it enough counterweight to secure on the back of that. And looking at my C-stand, I don't have my C-stand oriented properly. That longer leg should be away from, or I'm sorry, that longer leg should be towards, always parallel and towards the weight. And the weight is right there because of the light. So I'm off by about 15 degrees. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, buddy.